gonna do this show. And you better do it right. Because don't forget, we're from Austin and San Anto, carnal. We come out chased by hounds, wearing a rabbit's foot for luck. Que vida loca. And another thing, mira Oprah, you better put on a good show, or else I'm gonna send you back to the South Bronx. Está bueno?
Cut.
How was I?
Hi, I'm Rowan Westlick, an RTF student here at ACC, and on tonight's episode of CinemaWorks Late Night, we have actor, producer, director, Jessie Borrego. Jessie has starred in such TV shows as the original Fame TV series, 24, Dexter, and Fear the Walking Dead, just to name a few. Not only that, but he has starred in such films as Con Air, Blood In, Blood Out, The New World, Columbiana, and he's currently promoting Phoenix, Oregon. Jessie, it's an honor to have you with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
My joy.
So, can we go into like how you got started into like acting and kind of what your story was before today?
Yeah, I got into college, and that kind of, gave me the pathway to go to the next level, which was to actually get into a theater company.
Right. You went to high school. Sorry to interrupt, but you went to high school in Texas, around here, and you were in the drama in San Antonio.
Yeah. Well, I actually wound up because of the difficulty in my childhood. We traveled around a lot, and we were on the road a lot, and so I was in the Midwest for a while, inner city Chicago for many years, and that's actually where I started high school. But again, with the turbulence in my life and everything, there really wasn't performance in my life. It wasn't until I got away from that, and I was actually with my grandmother in San Francisco, and that's where I kind of got back into drama club and realized, hey, this is something that made me feel good. So I think in later years, when I actually went from Incarnate Word to California Institute of the Arts in California, which is where I went probably in about 83, 84. Well, the Fame show was really big at that time. And I had the opportunity to go to an open audition for the show because they were looking for new kids.
Right.
Well, this is what I did. So somehow or other, I hitchhiked a ride to LA from the school, Valencia, which was about 40 minutes from LA. And I stood in line with 2,000, 3,000 people. And the auditions were held on the MGM lot. So I grew up watching musicals.
Yeah.
Not only musicals, my grandmother would introduce me to the Mariachi Charro musicals, which is all the Mexican stars, and they were all singers and performers, Tintan, Cantinflas, Antonio Aguilar. But I would also watch the MGM musicals. So I grew up with Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. So
you know how to tap dance a little bit?
No, but I can fake it really well.
Hey, there you go.
So I think in all of that through osmosis, here I was under the lion on the lot where all of my favorite musicals were filmed, and I'm getting ready to try to get into this profession that I've been studying my whole life. And I just, at that moment, I just had an epiphany that everything that had happened to me, that all of these little performances here and there in San Antonio, and that I was prepared. This was my school, and so I was able to walk in with a little more confidence, I think, than a lot of the people.
Right.
And I still advise a lot of young performers when they say, what do I do next? What should I do? I go, try to stay within an educational setting. Because not only are you actively studying these techniques and skills that you want to develop your talent with, but it's a safe place. So if you do go audition and it doesn't work out for you, you're back to school and you're back to working on the grind, as opposed to being a young professional, being out on the edge, struggling, and then what do you do when you're not getting these jobs, which is a big part of being a performer.
Right. Do you feel
and
like
being a producer?
Going to LA would be like a big part of that? Like, do you think that it matters where you go?
It matters less and less these days. I know that it's still exciting for young performers to be in a place like New York or LA.
Right.
But frequently those are the places that have higher costs of living.
Yeah.
So as a starting artist, that's the challenge. Atlanta has become a friendly place. New Orleans has become a friendly place. Austin, with the idea of it being a third coast in cinema in the late 90s, gave it, that kind of energy. And then a few years ago, with the increase of production from Robert Rodriguez and with the Austin studios, all of that kind of helped, I think, young performers feel that they could stay in Austin, stay in Texas, and still be part of some sort of movement. But I think now with social media, now with the internet, I've been living in San Antonio for several years and I audition all the time. So it depends, I think as an artist, you have the opportunity to not necessarily live in a place that costs a lot while you're struggling and trying to get your feet wet. Now that being said, even me as an older performer, I still have to find ways to stay in the game, to reinvent myself, to get out there and put myself out there.
Yeah.
Whether through a publicity agent or through my managers, So it's always a hustle, it's always a game, but I think I urge a lot of younger performers, look, if you don't have your degree, go ahead and stay within an educational setting that's in your career path, and really get a well-rounded education as to what it takes. Don't just focus on acting, focus on production. Don't just focus on production, focus on the performance aspect of it, the writing, the development, the pitching, the hustle of a producer in terms of how do you get that budget, and
Right.
how do you find how this is going to get paid for, because it's a real profession.
Yeah. So like with all like the things you were learning along the way, did you have someone that was kind of like mentoring you or who had mentored you?
The best. I mean, one of the things that I've always done is I'm a student of whatever game I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was dancing, I was trying to learn from the best dancers.
Yeah.
The choreographer, and not only was I learning how to dance, but I was also thinking about, okay, how do you choreograph? How do you come up with the steps? What are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. So then as I developed my own style, I became a choreographer. It's the same thing when I was in theater school at Incarnate Word. When we would take directing classes, you didn't have to, but as an actor, I wanted to learn what a director sees.
Right.
We were required to take other courses, but I always wanted to take the ones, creative writing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take the courses that were above and beyond, because I wanted to really encompass everything that it took. I was always that type of an artist. And it always improved my skill because I understood the other sides of it. And I looked at the big picture. So it was the same when I got into the industry, when I actually got on the television show, Fame. The first thing I did was I would go on the set when I wasn't filming, and I would sit in this chair and I'd watch.
Kind of like act as the director or something.
And ask questions.
Yeah.
When I have the opportunity, set etiquette, I would walk up. And luckily Debbie Allen, who really discovered me. I went to her and I remember very many times asking her, so what's going on here? So what are you doing? So how are you directing? And she was very magnanimous with her knowledge. She would say, well, we're right here, honey, we're doing this, and it's a master, and now we're going to do coverage, and it's a two-shot, there's two people, and now we're getting the close-ups. And so I started to learn the language, and then I would become very friendly with the camera crew, because that was something that I always learned. If you get friendly with the crew, whether you're on stage or whether you're doing production, then you're able to talk to each other.
Right.
And it just facilitates what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to get it in the can, you're trying to get the good take, you're trying to get a good flow in the production, and so we're all in it together. It's not that idea of, oh, I'm the star, wait for me, here I come.
Right.
And the one thing I learned as soon as I got into series television was there is a lot of that. Here comes the star, we gotta wait, everything's in preparation for, and here comes the big star, and now we continue. And I always felt, coming from the theater, that I was trained differently, that it was a collaborative process,
Right.
that we were trying to achieve a good take, that we wanted to give the directors and the producers and the writers what they wanted so that we can move on.
So like when you're on like a set like Fear the Walking Dead, and is that something like you would take that same approach where you would just kind of be on set when everybody else is there and just kind of like ask them questions so you can be on
Stay
the
in the
same
game.
page before you just, they're like, all right, star, come on in.
As soon as I get onto a set, and again, this is my old theater training and the way I trained myself in television, in my first jobs. As soon as I get to the set, I go to the set first. I don't worry about all of this other stuff in terms of being the actor. Because the minute you get on the set as an actor, wardrobe and, do you want some coffee and you want something
Right.
to eat and here's your trailer and we'll call you when we're ready. The first thing I do is, give me the sides and let's go to the set and where's the director and where's the DP, where are you guys shooting, where's the location, what's going on right now, where are we in the schedule. And so I go and I look at what's going on, and that gives me a temperature, as to how I'm going to come in. And again, that's that old theater training.
Right.
I'm horrible in my regular life in terms of being on time, and I'm always the late guy. But it's interesting that in my profession, I'm completely the other way. I like to get there early. I like to see what's going on. I would get there 2 hours, even though our call was at 6 in the theater. I always got there at 4 or 5 because I wanted to feel that I had everything going on. I knew where my props were. I went through my entrances and my blocking, and so that pride and professionalism, carried me through a lot. I think it's given me that kind of longevity in terms of a career, because I don't get a bad rap. Professionalism is always, high grade. So I may not be the hot guy that month, but professionalism is always high on my list.
Right, and taking that extra step just to kind of like go in and learn has helped you, like not just as an actor, but also when you started directing and like producing.
Yeah, the understanding again of the big picture, and that ultimately it's about the storytelling, it's about the narrative, it's about, that emotional catharsis that we want to achieve with our audience. And so keeping very specific and professional, you free yourself creatively that way.
Right.
And you notice that it frees the director creatively, because then he doesn't feel like he has to lead you through it. It frees the production creatively, because they don't feel that there's a wall between the actor, who's the celebrity or the star, and the production, which has to kind of manage all this.
Right.
I break that ground right away so that, creatively we can get to where we need to.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think when that happens, it allows me then to give my best performances, because I'm not worried about all this external stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a big part of it, unfortunately, because production is a big budget item. There's all this money involved, and especially once you get into the industry, it's the entertainment industry, and so there's a lot of unseen influences that have to do with the money and the budget and the investors, and advertisers and all of this, that has nothing to do with the creative narrative that you're trying to tell.
Right.
And I think that's tough for a lot of creative people, because we have these pie in the sky ideas that, the story is the main thing. But the first thing I try to tell, young students of the game is, it's not entertainment creating. So it's not movie making, it's movie selling. It's entertainment selling. It's information selling. So at some point there has to be some sort of distribution of this information that we're creating. Even in a show like CinemaWorks, you have to have an audience. So there has to be some sort of, how does it get out there? Is it sponsors? Is it the college that pushes it on? And there has to be some sort of a give and take. And so then you have that influence. You have that idea of, how is this information going to be disseminated? And I think for us as creatives, it's understanding that and understanding that there's a correct pathway.
You mentioned that something about the human narrative, and then also about the way you want to be like representing characters, and something about how you don't want to play bad guys in certain films necessarily.
And that
unless
was
it's
a
high quality film.
That was a process that I had to go through, because when I got into the television game, there weren't too many Latino role models in terms of characters. I remember very clearly whenever they asked me, what made you want to become an actor? It was all the theater, it was all community and barrio theater, school. But again, I was watching my father perform on stage, singing in English and Spanish, and very cultural music, Tex-Mex. But again, the influence of rock and roll and American pop music, and the fact that that was just a normal part of our life. We were very bicultural, and we didn't even think of it as bicultural. It was very unicultural for us to code switch and to listen to different types of music. And so I think as a young student and as a young performer, that was always there. And I call it the cultural narrative now, but really I teach kids from the inside out, and young performers and even older performers that come to me, that their story is what's important. So as I developed this as a professional, I realized that that wasn't there in American cinema, and it wasn't there in American television. But I was lucky enough to be on the edge of it. I did see it in music. Los Lobos was really starting to pick up at that time in LA. And there were other inklings of it, but there really weren't those types of characters. So immediately after Fame, I started dealing with, the gang kid and the drug dealer and it was a lot of detective stuff. In television, it's always crime dramas, right? Crime drama is a big genre in television. For 40, 50 years of television, it's been a big thing. So again, who are the bad guys in the crime dramas? And so I saw a lot of that as a working actor. And I think at that point I said, okay, I have to make a choice. And I think that's when I really started to define, well, can I really create a character? And then I got lucky. Blood In, Blood Out, who, even though the character was a gang kid, he ultimately became a successful Latino artist.
Right.
I Like It Like That, who's a transgender character from the South Bronx, and it was all about a South Bronx family trying to, a woman's coming of age and the support that her Latino family gives her. And then on top of that, as soon as Fame, a season of Fame would end, I never gave up the theater. So whenever I would go back to the theater, we were doing German expressionist plays, and Wojciech, New York Shakespeare Festival, and Cymbeline. So even though I was working on the stage as a Latino actor, I was working on all of this classical and experimental work that never really pigeonholed me and stereotyped me. So that's what I would do when I wasn't doing series television or when I wasn't doing film. So I was constantly feeding myself as an artist, and that idea that you can express ultimately what you feel you want to express as an artist.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I had my buddies who were doing commercials and series television, and that's all they were playing. They were doing the Hill Street Blues, they were doing New York Undercover, they were doing all of that. And, it was tough for them because they were making a living. They were making sometimes a better living than I was. But again, was it feeding their souls, So I think as artists, we try to find a way to manage that, Now, has it changed? It's changed a whole lot more. There's a lot more opportunities to play positive role models, to characters and narratives that you feel proud of. But I think people still need to develop that idea of what is their story. And what is the legacy they want to leave behind as artists?
Okay.
And you can say that I made a living. That's enough of a legacy to say that you over 30 years in the Screen Actors Guild. So to be able to say that as an artist, I think is a big thing, especially as an artist of color. Someone who specifically says they're an artist of color.
Well, I appreciate you representing that and sharing that with us, because I think that will definitely be helpful for certain people like Latino ACC students, or people that are trying to kind of work their way around some of these obstacles.
And again, remember that the cultural narrative, to me, really stems from who you are. So again, with all this DNA tracking, and I'm 15% Sephardic Jew, and I'm 20% Native American, we realize that we have the influences of the entire world in our genes, in our microcosm. And I think that's what I try to teach with the cultural narrative. So even though I'm specifically Latino, I identify Chicano, I identify Native American, when I teach my classes in terms of the cultural narrative, it's really about every single one of us tapping into our family history,
right,
into our source of being.
Yeah.
And I think that many times we try to, no matter who you are, you try to homogenize yourself to fit into whatever the success level is. And I think many times I try to teach my performers and my students how to feel proud of who they are, and that their story is important, and that there is a story there that they need to tell. And that goes beyond any specific culture and identification, and it really broadens, I think, people's ideas of what they can be on camera and on stage, or as producers, what type of story they want to tell. And I think that's important, because those are the type of well-rounded artists that I think are going to change the world.
Well, I really hope
hate it because I'm tired of superheroes, man. Come on. That's enough. Some uber being coming and fixing all our problems with some incredible power that blows things up.
Right.
Come on, give me a break. We were kids. I read comics when I was a child. They're pretty infantile in terms of a human narrative. So come on, we need to get beyond that and talk about what's really going on.
You gotta start that process, right? You're gonna change the game. And,
absolutely. And I always advise young performers, actors, do you write? And they sit there and go, oh, well, that's not really my greatest skill. I go, write, because no one knows that character, that person that you can play. No one knows that. They're going to try and pigeonhole you. It's just the way the industry is. The minute you become a professional, they're going to try and see what type are you, how high, how tall are you, what culture you are. The minute they see you, they're going to try and pigeonhole you. And only you know what that character or what that story is in your family. So the more you write, the more you're going to develop those ideas. So even if your writing is not developed, you develop that skill. It's going to make you a better reader of scripts. It's going to make you a better communicator. And ultimately, you may, as an actor, you may be able to write that script that's going to blow you. I mean, we always talk about Rocky, and the fact that that was Stallone's script. That was his idea. And after he came up with the idea, they still tried to take him out of it and say, well, thank you for the script, great idea, but we don't need you. And he goes, no, I'm the one who's got to play it. And on and on and on, and he's built an entire career off of Rocky. I mean, we were watching Rocky 10.
Yeah. Well, if you write a script, I wanna try and get in on that
You're
next
in,
time.
man.
So,
You're in, Papa.
But unfortunately, we have to wrap up with that. But I appreciate you coming on tonight and putting on that amazing skit. And if you guys want to check out Phoenix, Oregon, definitely see his shirt. It's great.
Aliens bowling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
gotta watch the trailer to understand.
Right.
Aliens bowling.
That's right. So go follow him on Instagram and for more updates on his project with Phoenix, Oregon. And my name is Rowan Westlick, and be sure to join us on our next episode of CinemaWorks Late Night.